In this video, we're going to cover setting up Dolphin on Xbox Series X and S. Welcome to our all-in-one Dolphin Setup guide for everything you need on emulating GameCube and Wii games on the Xbox Series X and S. The Xbox Series X and S CPU is good enough to emulate most GameCube and Wii games without much issue, but there are some demanding titles that will still have issues, but for the most part this is a fantastic system to emulate these systems on. So this is going to be a very comprehensive video, so it's going to be very long. Be sure to pay attention to the timestamps and find information that you need based on those. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Now, as we get started, there are a couple things you're going to need, the first of which being an Xbox Series X or S console. Yes, I do recommend having an Xbox Series X or S only because the CPU inside the Xbox One systems isn't really that great, so while you might be able to run the most lightweight GameCube games, an overwhelming majority of it is going to run like garbage. So an Xbox Series X and S really is the baseline if you want to do this. You will also need to have that system registered with developer mode, so we have the whole tutorial on how to do that if you don't already have it done. So link to this will be in the description below for anyone that needs to get this done. We're not going to go over these steps again here, just to try to cut some time off of this video. Once you have your Xbox Series X and S signed up for dev mode, just go ahead and get it booted up into the dev mode dashboard. And then make sure that you also have a properly formatted USB drive. This could be an external hard drive, SSD, thumb drive, doesn't matter. But there are some considerations to make if you plan on using HD texture packs with Dolphin. If you are, you're going to need to have either a USB thumb drive that has a very fast read speed or an external SSD. Mechanical hard drives just aren't fast enough to give the performance needed for HD texture packs. So for today's video, I am once again using the Crucial X6 1TB external SSD. It has been my go-to since 2022 as I've covered Xbox emulation topics. It has worked flawlessly, no issues whatsoever. So anything similar to this will work just fine. But I will have a link to this in the description below if you want to pick one up. Also helps support our channel, so thank you. But like I said, you do need to have that drive properly formatted to work on Xbox consoles, because if you don't, you're going to get a lot of errors. So the initial dev mode setup guide covers all of that in great detail, but if you want a dedicated video just for the USB, we still have those listed right here on the channel. Links will be in the description below. But now let's go ahead and get Dolphin downloaded and get it ready to install on our Xbox. So we're going to head to the Xbox Dev Store. Link to this will be in the description below. Pay attention to any prompts that might be up here because it might be talking about any potential download links being broken. So just be aware of anything listed up here. But you can go ahead and click on emulators or just scroll down to the emulators tab here until you find Dolphin. Now just go ahead and click on the download link. And if for whatever reason that doesn't work, you can also just go to the official GitHub page of Sir Mangler and download it from here. So you can just scroll down, find the newest version, click on assets, and then just download it. And either option works just fine, so your preference. Once you have Dolphin downloaded, go ahead and make sure once again to have your Xbox booted up into dev mode and on the dev mode dashboard hooked up to your network so you can see your remote access IP address. So go ahead and get that address entered into your web browser of choice on your computer and get loaded up into the Xbox Dev Portal. On your Xbox device portal under My Games and Apps, click on Add. And now you can either drag that Dolphin app into this little box here or click on Choose File. And then just navigate to where you have it stored, select it, and click on Next. Dolphin does not need any dependency files, so we can just click on Start from here to begin the install process. And done. And with that, we are done with the Xbox device portal, so you can go ahead and close out of here. Now over on the Xbox, you'll see that you now have a Dolphin emulator entry here. So we're just going to change this from a UWP app to a UWP game if you don't have that option set in the Xbox dev portal. So just go ahead and press your view button, menu button, I don't know what it's called. But go down to view details, change it from app to game. And I always like to do a console restart here. With the Xbox restarted, we could go down and make sure that the change has taken effect. It has. Good. Awesome. So now let's go ahead and start prepping our USB drive before launching into Dolphin for the first time. So go ahead and get your USB drive hooked up to your computer and we can begin. So here's my Xbox USB drive, all set, good to go. It has some stuff on it from other tutorials we've done. But for Dolphin, we're going to create a new folder in our USB drive, and again, our USB drives need to be properly formatted with NTFS file system and proper security permissions. Again, those videos will be linked in the description below if you need to do this. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and create a new Dolphin folder. So we're just going to name it Dolphin. And we're going to leave it like that. Next, we're going to go ahead and add our GameCube, Wii, and Virtual Console games to our USB drive. So you are going to need to supply your own game files. So on the channel, I do have guides on how to dump your GameCube and Wii discs, as well as how to dump your Virtual Console and WiiWare games to use in emulation like this. So links to both of these guides will be in the description below. Otherwise, you can resort to Google, find things, but as always, illegal download links are not provided on this channel, so please do not ask for them. But as for file formats, GameCube games, the expected formats are either going to be GCM, .iso. You could compress them using the PC version of Dolphin or NKit into GCZ or RVZ, and they should work just fine. Everything that will work on the PC version of Dolphin will work on the Xbox version of Dolphin in terms of file formats. And so for Nintendo Wii, again, you're looking at ISO, CISO, and RVZ should, again, all work as intended. So I have quite a variety of file formats here. And then your WiiWare games are going to be in WAD format, and Virtual Console games also in WAD format. But once you have all the games you want to add source, just add them to your Xbox USB drive in any folder you desire. So if you've used the formatting tool, you have a games folder, and you'll have dedicated folders for GameCube and Wii. So just going to copy everything in right now. Alright, so once you have all of your games placed and your Dolphin folder made, we are ready to move back over to the Xbox. So go ahead and take your USB drive out of the PC, move back over to the Xbox, and we'll continue from there. Once your USB drive is detected by the Xbox, go ahead and launch into the Dolphin emulator for the first time. Once you're on the Dolphin menu, go ahead and press your menu button, start button, whatever you want to call it these days. Now with your D-pad, navigate to this left box here and press A. And then from here, navigate down to the Paths button and press A. Now from here, press B. Navigate over to the box on the right, press A. Now go down and press A on Set Dolphin User Folder Location. On the Select Folder option, navigate down to the USB entry here. And now select your Dolphin folder and press A on Select. And remember that you need to have the proper formatting and permissions set once again, otherwise you might get an error about how the directory is not writable. But anyway, once you've set the Dolphin folder, we are going to go ahead and quit out of Dolphin and load it back up so the changes take effect. So just go ahead and quit out of it, load back in. And after it loads back in, we're going to go ahead and quit out of it one more time here. And move our USB drive back over to our PC just to verify that the setting has taken effect. So back over on the computer, USB drive pulled up. Now when I open up that Dolphin folder, you can see that it has been populated by all of Dolphin's subfolders that are needed to use Dolphin. Perfect. So we can go ahead and move on here. So just going to get this back into the Xbox. But now that we've confirmed that that folder works, let's go ahead and get our game directory set up. So loading back into Dolphin. Press your menu button, start button to go back into the settings. Select the box on the left, head back down to Paths, press A. Now press B, go over to the right box, press A. And we're going to add our game folder path. So just press A on Add Path. Now navigate down to your USB drive and select the folders where your GameCube games are stored. So mine are in Games and Wii games. Forgot to mention Wii games. But anyway, so I'm going to select Nintendo GameCube. And now just press the menu button and press A on Select. And now I'm going to add my Wii games in as well. So same deal, select the USB icon, and then navigate to where your Wii games are stored. So I put all of my Nintendo Wii, WiiWare, and Virtual Console games in this Nintendo Wii folder. So I'm not going to have to select multiple folders for this. If you have all of your games separated, just add the folders as needed. But this is all I need for mine. And so once I have this set, I'm just going to go ahead and press the menu button, start button again. And it'll bring me out of the settings menu, but it's going to be loading up my games list, so this is going to take a minute. And there we go. Cool. So there are all of my games in those folders found inside the Xbox Series X and S version of Dolphin. Now, navigating this menu for the first time is very slow. It has to cache all of these titles and thumbnails, essentially, so You'll notice that going through and scrolling through this menu the first time is very, very slow. And that's normal, that's fine. But I like to go ahead and scroll through this one time, just so in the future when I load up Dolphin, this is all a lot quicker. But as you can see, after you get through the list, it is much faster, everything loads up very quickly, and you're able to navigate it very quickly. And there's even shortcuts to navigate between all of your games inside your folders, or if you just want to separate them into just Wii specific, GameCube specific, or your WiiWare and Virtual Console games. But once everything's working as expected, to play a game, all you need to do is press A, and it will load up. So here we are, 007 Nightfire for Nintendo GameCube, running on the Xbox Series S. So again, Xbox Series S and X have pretty good performance for an overwhelming majority of GameCube titles. There are a few exceptions to this, and I will show you what to do for these titles to make them run a bit better on these systems. Now at any point, if you want to go back to the in-game menu, you just need to click down on both of your thumbsticks, and that'll bring you into this pause menu where you can either change discs or exit the game. You can also manage save states, other options, and then Netplay lobbies are also available, but this is how you would exit out of the game if needed. And then clicking on R3, L3 again will bring you out of it. But as far as initial setup is concerned, you are now done. You can enjoy the vast majority of your GameCube games just right off rip. It's set to 1080p video output by default. You have a basic control setup ready to go. And things work. So from this point on in the video, we are going to be talking about advanced setup for the Dolphin emulator on Xbox Series X and S. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and go into our in-game menu with L3, R3 here, and we're going to exit out of the game. Now, exiting games in Dolphin doesn't always work. Do be aware of that. Sometimes it'll bring you back no problem. Other times it will freeze and you will need to do a force quit. Just how it is. Might get more stable as time goes on, but just be aware of it. So we're going to begin this next section by going back into the Dolphin Settings page. With our D-pad, we're going to select the left box here. And we're going to start on the General tab. So pressing B, going over to the other box, pressing A. Dual core is enabled by default, leave this how it is. And enabled cheats is also on by default, you can leave this how it is. Unless you know you're really not going to use cheats, but just go ahead and leave it on, we'll go over cheats momentarily. But allowed mismatch region settings, if you have some really weird region stuff going on, you can turn this on to maybe help alleviate that. But I'm going to go ahead and turn on change discs automatically. This is for your 2-disc GameCube games, this way you don't have to worry about selecting new discs. And then you can also set a fallback region if auto detection doesn't work for whatever reason, so that is also available. Now down to interface, you can turn on an FPS icon in the top corner of the screen so you can see what frame rate your games are running at. On-screen messages are enabled by default, and these let you know when things like the memory card are being written to or other error messages. And then you can also enable rendering statistics if you would like a more advanced look at what is going on behind the scenes. And then there are a couple of different themes available for Xbox Series X and S version of Dolphin now, so you can use whichever one you like. Graphics. So VSync is enabled by default. I recommend leaving it there to reduce screen tearing. Leave Scaled EFB copy on. You can disable fog in games if you'd like. Kind of ruins the aesthetic of some things, but this will be a personal choice if you want to use it. You can also enable per pixel lighting. It doesn't cause as much of a performance hit as it used to. So personal preference if you want to use this or not. Leave disable copy filter on. Now under the internal resolution tab, again, it's set to 1080p by default. This is a good balanced middle ground. On the Series S, I tend to use 1440p. On the Series X, you could probably push this up to 4K in most titles and not have any issues, but the rule of thumb with internal resolution, if you get slowdowns where you didn't have them before, just lower it back down. Next up, aspect ratio. This is set to auto by default, so anytime you switch between 4:3 and 16:9 sources, it should automatically adjust the screen for you. You can also force 16:9 or 4:3 if desired. Next up, shader compilation. This is set to synchronous by default, and this will introduce shader compilation stutter, so the first time an effect happens on screen, you will notice that it hitches and causes micro stutters and delays, and it's just not the best. To alleviate this, the Dolphin team created Uber shaders, and these are the best options to use. I'm not sure if they work on Xbox yet, though. They have historically not worked, and I have not given this new version of Dolphin a proper test to see if they work yet, but if they do work, using hybrid Uber shaders is the best route. If they don't work, I prefer just using skip drawing, so that way we don't get micro stutters. You'll end up with broken graphics while those shaders are compiled, but honestly, that's better to me than having a micro stutter. And then you could also tell games to compile shaders before starting. Next up, anti-aliasing. This is set to MSAA by default with a 2x applied. You could do SSAA, or you could turn it up and off. It doesn't matter. Personal preference. And then same thing with anisotropic filtering. You can set this all the way up to 16x without much issue. Personal preference. So now going back over the controls tab. So we're going to go over this in much more detail momentarily, but on the basic sense, you can choose which controller you're using for which port, and then you can select a profile for that port. So quick example of multiplayer gaming here. So I have my Xbox controller in port 1, and that is going to be the WG Input 0 Xbox One game controller. And then for port 2, we're going to change this over to WG Input 1. And then if you have a third controller hooked up, you're going to change that over to port 2. And for port 4, you're going to change that to number 3. So it goes 0, 1, 2, 3. And this is how you get multiple controllers hooked up to your Xbox and selectable in Dolphin. And again, you can select default profiles. Get these up and running with ease. And the same thing goes for Wii controllers. You just select port 0, 1, 2, 3. And then under profiles, you can select a profile as needed. But anyway, just to demo this for all of you, we have 2 controllers hooked up. So we're just going to go ahead and go into Custom Robo here. And so here we are inside Custom Robo's 1v1 battle mode here. So I am controlling both of these characters. So this is going to look really bad. But anyway, so here you can see I am using player 2 here. I'm running around with player 2, jumping around. There we go. And then player 1, there we are. There they both are. We are controlling both, as you can see. And that is how you get multiplayer set up on Dolphin, on the Xbox Series X and S. But now we're going to go ahead and talk about advanced controller setup. So we're just going to go ahead and quit out of Dolphin here real quick. And once you have quit out of Dolphin, you're going to need to move your USB drive back over to a PC. So to set up advanced control options and profiles, we are going to need the standalone version of Dolphin for PC, Mac, or Linux. It should work pretty universally across all these platforms, but obviously I am demoing this on Windows. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab the latest development version from the Dolphin download page. Link to this download page will be in the description below, but just go ahead and grab it for your particular operating system. And once you have it downloaded, get it extracted. You can just leave it on your desktop for ease of access here. But inside, there we go, Dolphin folder. We're going to create a new text file inside this folder on Windows. And we're going to name it Portable. That way, everything that we do in this instance of Dolphin will be in this folder so we could grab files much easier. But you could go ahead and launch into Dolphin. And you'll see that it has created a new user folder inside this folder. And that is exactly what we want. But from here, we could go into controllers, and we're going to set port 1 to standard controller, and then if you have more controllers hooked up, you can select them as well. But go ahead and get your Xbox controllers hooked up to your PC in the order that you want to use them in on the system itself. This is a very important thing to note. So if you have a controller that you always know you're going to be using for player 1, get that plugged in first. Now under port 1, click on Configure, and in the drop-down box here, select WG Input 0 and then your Xbox controller. And now you can map buttons any way that you desire. So I like to use A as A, and then to have a more GameCube-like setup, I like to set B to X, X to B, and Y to Y. And then Z to the right bumper, start as menu. And then we can set up our D-pad here. Set up our thumbsticks. And then for our triggers, we need to make sure that we set this up for both the digital button and the analog input. And then we can increase the threshold here a bit so that way we get more proper ranges and it doesn't activate that final button until we get near the end of our pull. And then for the rumble motors, we can add in motor L, and then I like to do an OR operator and then add motor R. And there we go. Now, when I just said about the controller inputs being important, comes down to what I want to show you next, and that is to calibrate our Xbox's thumbsticks to properly match that of a Nintendo GameCube's. So after you have all of your controls mapped, you can move your sticks around, and the gray dot is what your Xbox thumbstick is doing, and the red dot is how it is being registered inside of Dolphin for actual GameCube input. You can see that we are losing a lot of ranges along all of this circularity. So by pressing the calibrate button, you can create a custom calibration specific for your controller. That way, when you play, your controls will map perfectly to what a GameCube expects. And so you can see now we get these nice, crisp inputs along our Xbox's thumbstick ranges. And again, this is really important to get the best input possible. So once we have everything set, we're going to go ahead and create a new profile. And I'm just going to name this Player 1. And I'm going to save it. So now I'm just going to go ahead and close out of that. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to port 2. And again, you need to have all the controllers hooked up for this to work. So I still have my Player 1 controller plugged in, so now I'm just plugging in a new controller 2. So under port 2, going to go into configure and do the same thing. So I'm going to go to the drop-down box, and I'm going to select WG Input 1 Xbox One game controller. And I'm just going to map the buttons as desired. And finally, going to calibrate the thumbsticks again here because they're not what we need. So, calibrate. And you can see that this thumbstick is vastly different than my other Xbox controller. But we end up with the same result of perfect GameCube inputs. Perfect. So I'm just going to name this profile Player 2. And I'm going to save it. And then if you have a third controller, you'll plug that in, do the same process. And if you have a fourth controller, again, same process. And then the same thing is true of Nintendo Wii. If you need to create custom Nintendo Wii profiles, you're just going to come down here to Wii Remote, leave it on emulated Wii Remote, go into configure, select your controller. So again, Player 1 is always going to be the 0, Player 2 is the 1, Player 3 is the 2, and Player 4 is the 3. So we're going to select WG Input 0. And then you can go through and set up custom profiles as needed. So you can set your extensions. I'm going to do a classic controller here. So we're just going to go to extension. And this is set up in Nintendo fashion. So we're going to do B, A, X, I, L, Z, R, minus, U, up, down, left, right, up, down, left, right. And again, we can calibrate the thumbstick to match what is expected of a classic controller here. There we go. So I'm going to create a new profile for this one, name it Player 1 CC. Going to save it. But anyway, back under general and options here. So let's do just classic Wiimote here. So extensions, none. And we could choose whether this is upright or sideways. So I'm going to choose sideways Wii Remote for this profile. But anyway, we're going to do A, B, 1, 2, minus, plus. And then we're going to do the D-pad. And then we could also set hotkeys for toggling it, whether or not it's sideways or upright. So I'm going to set sideways toggle to my L3, upright toggle to R3. But anyway, now we could go ahead and set up motion controls as well as needed. So first thing I'm going to do is set up the IR pointer here. So I'm going to set this to my Xbox is left thumbstick. Going to calibrate that. There we go. Perfect. But again, you can set up other motion controls as needed for specific games. So let's do tilt here. So backwards, left, or forward, backwards, left, right. So those will calibrate as our tilt options here. Then you could do shake commands, and then different swinging commands as well. You're not going to be able to fit everything onto a single profile, unfortunately, so you are going to need to make multiple profiles depending on the game that you are playing. Not going to lie, Wii stuff isn't my favorite to try to do on a controller. But just as examples, this works out. So we're just going to go ahead and name this Player 1. Wiimote, just a little custom thing we did. Perfect. But then we can also do it again for nunchuck options. And again, you're just going to have to create new profiles, new motion simulations for everything that you might need them for. So again, the process is pretty involved. But once you have your profiles made, you can just go ahead and close out of that. Now inside the Dolphin folder on PC, find the user folder. Go into the config folder and you will now have a profiles folder. And inside you'll find profiles for your GameCube and Wii emotes. So now over on your Xbox USB drive, go into your Dolphin folder and under the config folder, drop in your profiles folder. And with that set, we could go ahead and close out of those folders for now. And we'll move our USB drive back over to our Xbox. Back over on the Xbox, we'll load back into Dolphin Emulator here. Going into our settings screen, head down to controls. And then under GameCube, again, we can change our input. And now you'll see that our profiles that we just created on the PC version of Dolphin are selectable under the Xbox version. So I'm going to select Player 1 for this one. And under port 2, going to change this over to WG input 1. And then we're going to select that Player 2 profile right there. But now as I play my GameCube games, and again, we are doing a multiplayer demonstration here, so you can see I do have control over both characters once again, so huzzah. Inputs are much more accurate to what a GameCube would actually be like, since we made those custom profiles based on the controllers we're using for these specific slots. Again, it is very specific. You don't want to mix and match these profiles, otherwise you would end up with wonky thumbstick controls. But everything just works absolutely beautiful. The button mappings are now more to what I would expect out of GameCube games, and again, you can use this method to create any number of custom profiles based on your own desires. It doesn't have to be a standardized set like I'm using. You can do whatever you want, depending on what game you're playing. It's also worth mentioning that if you go into the in-game menu, go over to options, you can change controls on the fly at any given time as you need. But now just for a quick demonstration for our Wii profile here. So again, you can choose WG input 1, and we could change between our custom Player 1 profiles or the built-in ones. It doesn't really matter, either way works. But load up my classic controller profile here. But here we are, Mega Man X2, using my classic controller profile. I actually had to fix this one up. I pushed 2 buttons for 1 input on accident, so go me. But adding a new profile is just as easy as just dragging the folder back in when you're done, or the specific profile that you want to add. Now for another example here, so Mario Kart Wii, this game can use GameCube controllers or Wiimotes, so it's defaulting to a GameCube controller here. But if desired, we could change this up, going over to the Controls tab. So under GameCube, we're going to set this to none. Now under the Wii tab, I'm going to select our controller. And let's go ahead and change this over to our Wii remote here. Now we're going to need to reset the game. All right, so I had to restart the game here, but now we are using our custom Wiimote sideways profile here. So again, I had the pointer set to my left analog stick, so we can actually use that to select things. And so now I'm actually having to use my mapped motion controls on my right analog stick to steer my cart, because that is how I have it set up. And this is very interesting, I'm not going to lie. Again, this could use a lot more customization than what I have done for it. And there's just no way around it. You're going to have to map a lot of things for specific games to get the best experience out of them on a controller. But the process is as shown, and the rest is up to you to just go ahead and make the most of it. But moving on, next tab is our GameCube tab. So this is where you can set things like system language, so English, German, French, Spanish, Italian, or Dutch. In slot 1, you are using a GCI folder. This is a great option to have. This way you never have to worry about running out of save game space. Now under slot 2, there is nothing inserted, but what I like to do here is actually insert a memory card, just a standard memory card file, and use this for the network configuration file for Phantasy Star Online. So under SP1, you could set this to broadband adapter HLE if you plan on using Phantasy Star Online, or if you want to do system link games like Mario Kart, Double Dash, Kirby Air Ride 1080. Setting this to HLE will automatically have it work with other instances of Dolphin and even real GameCubes. But once you have this option set, I'm going to show you how to get set up for Phantasy Star Online if desired. So go ahead and set this to broadband adapter HLE. And now we're going to go ahead and quit out of Dolphin. Now go ahead and take your USB drive out of your Xbox, move it back over to your PC. We're going to be using that standalone instance of Dolphin on PC to get things set up once again. So over on the PC, we got our Xbox USB drive up again, so we're just going to minimize that for a bit. But anyway, load up your standalone version of Dolphin once again. And under the Config tab here, click on the GameCube tab. And under SP1, we're going to go ahead and change this over to HLE just like we did before on the Xbox. Now under the 3 dots right here, it'll ask you to enter the DNS server to use. So it should be defaulted to the Schtack PSO private server by default. And sure enough, it is defaulted to the Schtack server as expected. So that is already good to go. But if you would like to use a different private server, you're just going to enter the DNS server for it inside this box by clicking on the 3 dots. And once you've done so, you just click on OK. But if you haven't already, you could register a new account on Schtack or Silverant. You will need to have an original version of the game with its ID and serial number to register an account. Otherwise, it will not work. I'm not going to go into great detail on registering an account because it's pretty self-explanatory, and I'm more interested in getting you set up on the Dolphin side. So just create an account on Schtack or Silverant. Again, get the DNS server entered into the box here. It's defaulted to Schtack, so you don't have to worry about it if you're using that one. It's the biggest private PSO server right now. But once you have that set, go ahead and close out of the PC version Dolphin, open up your Dolphin folder, go into the user folder, and then under your config folder, you'll see dolphin.ini. Go ahead and open this up, and you'll see broadband adapter built-in DNS equals the DNS server we need. So now under your Xbox's USB drive, go into your Dolphin folder, config folder, open up your Dolphin INI, and you'll see that we don't have a broadband adapter option in here. So we're going to go to the PC version's INI, and we're going to copy in the broadband adapter built-in DNS option. And now under our Xbox's INI, under the core option here, we're just going to paste it in. And with that done, just go ahead and save the INI. And we can close out of these and move back over to our Xbox. So back on the Xbox, we're going to load into Dolphin. And now just going to load into Phantasy Star Online 1 and 2. Made sure that my controller's set back up to GameCube first. Now on the start screen, we're going to go into Options. We're going to go to Network Options, Provider Option, And we're going to choose slot B for our network information file. So again, we chose a dedicated memory card in slot B just for this purpose. Now under network setup, just going to choose provider 4, doesn't matter. We're just going to save it to slot B. Now we're going to return to the game. Now on the main menu, we're going to go to online game. And I'm going to need to create a character here real quick, so I'm just going to skip over this part for quicker video. All right, so once you have your character selected, you just click on agree. And now you will enter in the serial number and access code found in your copy of Phantasy Star Online. If you don't have these codes, well, you're just going to have to figure out a way to make them. And after the serial number, it'll ask for the access key, so get this entered in as well. And then it will ask you to enter a password, so just go ahead and make something up. And then when asked to save your information, just go ahead and press yes. Then it'll ask if you want to save your password, go ahead and press yes, so you don't have to enter it in every single time you play. And if you have your account registered on your private server of choice, you will be brought to that server's lobby. So here we are. We are now in a private Phantasy Star Online server on an Xbox Series S. And now you can play the game with other GameCube players across real hardware and Dolphin, as well as original Xbox players on Insignia. So it's really cool stuff. And again, this method can also be used to play in LAN mode for games like Mario Kart Double Dash with the setup that you've already done. So just as a quick demo, I'm going to connect it to my PC version of Dolphin. And there we go. It saw my PC version of Dolphin. And we are now in LAN mode. So here we are. LAN mode, Mario Kart Double Dash on an Xbox Series S. But moving on, next up we have the Wii tab. So our first option, enable PAL 60. So if you are using PAL versions of games and want to enable 60 FPS mode, turn this option on. Then we have system language, and then you can choose between mono, stereo, and surround sound. Next up, advanced. So the first option here is enable VI skip. This is actually a very important option on Xbox Series X and S for more demanding titles. So I'm going to give you a quick example of this one. So here we are in Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2, one of the most demanding games on Dolphin. You'll see that our FPS up in the corner there is not great. It's dropping into the yellow. I don't have audio enabled, so you can't hear the massive audio stuttering and nastiness that's going on. Like, it's just not a great experience. It does not run well in the slightest. Don't mind the graphical glitches. That's from Skip Draw that we chose earlier. But you can see that it's just not optimal. It's not running very well. So going into options, going back under advanced, that is where this enable VI skip option comes into play. It will lower the game's FPS but it will provide a smooth audio experience, so that way the game is at least playable in a more enjoyable fashion. So now when we go back in after enabling the VI skip, you'll see that our FPS is still low. It's still in the same 40s about, but you see that the FPS indicator no longer turns yellow, which means that we are achieving quote unquote full speed emulation here. So, I mean, the game is supposed to run at 60 FPS. And if you have a powerful computer, you can actually achieve that. But again, the CPU in the Xbox Series X and S just isn't clocked high enough to get full speed out of this game. So the VI skip option is a necessity to, again, make this game more enjoyable, gets rid of the audio skips. So it's a great option to have enabled globally, but for games that don't need it, you really don't need to have it on, but it's just a nice little backup. That way you don't get disgusting audio unexpectedly from different games. All right, next we have custom textures. So if you want to use HD texture packs on the Xbox Series S and S version of Dolphin, it is possible. So you could just enable load custom textures, and then turning on prefetch custom textures is a great idea. But with these options enabled, we're going to go ahead and quit out of Dolphin once again, because guess what? Once again, we got to move our USB drive over to a computer. So Dolphin has supported HD texture pack for many years now, and they have a nice centralized way of finding those within the Dolphin forums. There's a custom texture projects thread, and everyone posts their texture projects here. So it's nice and easy to find. You can use search function to find different games you need. But here we go. Let's go ahead and load up Resident Evil 4 HD project for GameCube. So they should have a nice download link on the first post. If not, you can search through the post and figure it out. But anyway. Alright, so got 3 texture packs downloaded: Phantasy Star, Mario Kart Double Dash, and Resident Evil 4. So this Resident Evil 4 HD pack is over 8 gigs compressed, so this one's probably not even going to work. I believe the limit is around 5 gigabytes for pre-caching, but I still want to demo this for you anyway. But anyway, go ahead and get your HD texture packs unzipped. Now with those packs extracted, we can go into their individual folders here, and you should see a folder that is either a 3 to 5 letter code here, and inside you'll see the texture folders. So we just need to copy these folders into our Dolphin user folder under the textures folder. So going into your Xbox's USB drive, go into your Dolphin folder, load, and you'll see textures. So we're just going to drag these texture packs right into that folder. So there's Mario Kart Double Dash. Now we'll do Phantasy Star Online Episode 1 and 2. So again, main folder and inside subfolders with textures. So we're just going to drag that into the load textures folder as well. And finally, that massive one for Resident Evil 4 on GameCube. Again, this one is in its subfolder and inside all the textures. So again, this texture pack is very likely to not work on the Xbox Series X and S, but we're going to try it anyway. So once you have all of your packs in place, go ahead and close it out and move back over to your Xbox. Now load back into Dolphin. So we're going to start with Phantasy Star Online Episode 1 and 2 as our first example here. So you can see up in the up left corner that it has loaded in the custom textures. But here we are inside Phantasy Star Online Episode 1 and 2. So you can see everything's looking really crisp, really nice. But at any point, you could come in and turn custom textures off so you can see the difference for yourself. So we could just see here that things are just a lot less crisp than they were before. And then when we turn it back on, that extra level of sharpness comes into play. You can really see that on these little holographic symbols here. Now here we are in Mario Kart Double Dash, same thing. We got that HD texture pack in place. You can see that the main menu here is just a lot cleaner than it used to be. And if we were to turn those HD texture packs off, you could see it back in its original form. And once in actual gameplay here, you can see how much crisp everything is. Like, it just looks fantastic. Great HD texture pack here from Mario Kart Double Dash. Keeps the spirit of the original while looking a million times cleaner. So here we are in Resident Evil 4, and like I said, this texture pack is too big to pre-cache on the Xbox Series X and S. You can always turn prefetch custom textures off and try to load them directly from the drive. Might be times where the lower resolution texture still comes into play, but otherwise it tends to work out okay as long as you have a faster storage medium like an external SSD as mentioned. So as you can see, we have the HD texture pack completely running from the SSD without any issue here. So my general rule of thumb, if the texture pack is 4 gigs and under, prefetch on. If it's above, off. Next up, enable graphic mods. These are essentially the same process as HD texture packs. You find the mod you want, add it to your load folder, good to go. Next, enable texture dumping. So if you want to dump textures and make your own HD texture packs, you would enable this option and it would dump every single texture you see in the game onto your USB drive. Next up, texture cache accuracy. This is set to fast by default, and games set this as needed, so you don't really need to mess with it. Next up, clock override. This is used to change the emulated CPU speed of your emulated GameCube. So this was most useful on Xbox to underclock the CPU to make games like Rogue Squadron run better, but since that's not needed anymore thanks to VI skip, its most useful use case is to overclock your emulated CPU to get smoother frame rates on less demanding games. So games like Need for Speed Underground, as an example, can fluctuate between 30-something to 60-something FPS on the GameCube version. If you were to overclock the emulated CPU up to 200%, you get a more locked 60 FPS. The CPUs in the Xbox Series X and S aren't as powerful as modern PCs, so use this option sparingly. Next up, paths. We've already covered this one in initial setup, but once again, this is where you put in your Dolphin user folder and game folders. So from here, let's go ahead and cover cheats and game-specific INIs. So if you'd like to use cheats, again, make sure Enable Cheats is enabled in the general menu here. And once you're sure of that, go ahead and quit out of Dolphin and move your USB drive over to a computer. Now back over on your computer, go ahead and load up your PC version or Mac or Linux version of Dolphin. And we're going to add our USB directories that we have our games stored in from our Xbox USB drives. So we're just going to go ahead and set these up real quick. We're going to choose our GameCube folder. And then we're going to add in our Wii folder. That way all of our games show up here just like they would on the Xbox essentially. So now click on the config tab, make sure enable cheats is enabled here as well. But anyway, let's go ahead and load up cheat codes for different titles. So for example, Mario Kart Double Dash, just right click on it, click on properties. Inside the configuration menu, you'll see that there is an AR codes and a Gecko codes page. So if you click on AR codes, there should be a nice list of things already available. So we're going to turn on unlock everything. That's the easiest one to demo. You'll see that the title screen changes and it'll be good to go. And at any time, you can also add new codes as needed. Using the PC version of Dolphin, you could type in the name of the code and put in the code here. And if you go to a game's wiki page, you can usually find widescreen codes that you can use for specific titles. So we're going to go ahead and add in a widescreen code for Mario Kart Double Dash as well. So this one is listed as a Gecko code. So going back into Mario Kart Double Dash's properties here, we have the action replay code of unlock everything on. And now we're going to add in a new Gecko code. You can also click on download codes to see if it finds anything. So there we go. It found the Gecko codes here. Now we're going to add in a new code. And makes game 16 by 9. There we go. So that's what it should look like. You got the name, the creators, a little note about it, and then the code itself. So there we go. Got that entered and enabled. So now we're just going to close out of that because it is all set. Now, another game that you will all be interested in using cheats for might be Twilight Princess for the Hyrule Field hack. So going into its properties, under patches, Hyrule Field Speed Hack. So this will get you better playable speeds in the Hyrule Field by getting rid of that outline along the border. And then the same thing, you can enable cheat codes or gecko codes. Again, you can click on download, and it should download a good number of gecko codes for you automatically as long as it can find them, and you can enable them as you need. But again, the patches is the one where I'm interested on this one. But by going into any game-specific wiki page, so for example, we could go into... Oh, we forgot to do one thing here real quick under our paths. We want to make sure we search subfolders. There we go. So now we can see our 2-disc games. But for example, Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. We go to the wiki. You can see that there is a codec screen error that makes the background blue instead of color it's supposed to be. And you can fix this by disabling store XFB copies to texture only. But to edit a per game INI, there is a page on the Dolphin Wiki named Game INI. It'll be linked in the description below, but it gives you all of the things you need to be able to manually set things on a per game basis if needed. So again, the one we need for Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. So we're going to need to add in the XFB copies. So XFB to texture enable equals and change this to false. So we're just going to copy this command right here. And this goes under a section named Video Hacks in our INI. So back in Dolphin, Metal Gear Solid, under presets, we're going to go into the editor and open an external editor. So you can see we have a bunch of gecko codes enabled because I downloaded them. But we're going to create a new section here, and we're going to name it Video_Hacks. And that's where we're going to paste in that XFB to texture enable, and we're going to type in false. And then we're going to save the INI. And now if we go back into properties, editor, we will see that we have XFB to texture enable equals false. So another nice thing about Dolphin now is that some of these are actually pre-included in the configuration. So again, you could go on presets here, and under video, we could see that the store XFB copies to texture only, we have an option to turn this on or off. So you could also just come in here and do off. And if that's too much of a performance hit, you can come in and turn it to true. But you can see it gives us the exact same option. I just wanted to show you the game INI thing because there is a lot of powerful stuff you could do here on a per game basis by utilizing the game INIs. But once you've set everything you need to for specific games, if you want to do more game specific stuff, but anyway, go ahead and close out a Dolphin. Go into your Dolphin folder, user folder, and in here you'll see a game settings folder. And this has all of the INIs that we just edited. So now open up your Xbox's USB drive, go into your Dolphin folder, and you can just drag the game settings from your PC version of Dolphin over into the Xbox version, and there they are. Or you could open it up and drag them in folder to folder. Either way, once those are in place, you can close out of everything, move back over to your Xbox. With the drive in place, load up Dolphin. And we're going to go ahead and start with our cheat codes here. So we're going to load up Mario Kart Double Dash. But there we go. You can see that the code has now taken effect. Everything is now unlocked in the game. And we have all of the difficulty settings unlocked and all of the characters unlocked. So code again is working as intended. Very cool stuff. We even got the train. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that widescreen code has taken effect. But that's okay. That's essentially the process of doing it, so not sure if this code actually works or not. But another example of using our per game settings, here is Twilight Princess. with the Hyrule Field speed hack enabled, so you can see that we are not getting any slowdowns or massive problems in game speed while playing this game. As I say as we go into a black screen. Anyway, here we go. So, as you can see, game remains playable, full speed, no issues, except for our minimap really having some fun. And now for the last example of our per game INI settings here, we have Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. So we put in that setting to fix the codec background screen so it would not be blue. And there we go. As you can see, that is now working as we expected it to. So we're getting the proper coloring in the menus here. And on Xbox Series X and S, it does not seem to be giving us much problems in performance as of yet. I mean, getting to the Vulcan Raven fight might change that up, but for the most part, this is not the most demanding of games on the GameCube. Now, the last option I want to touch on is Netplay. So by pressing the View button, back button, it'll bring you into the Netplay menu. And from here, you can choose between a direct connection to a host or using one of Dolphin's traversal servers. You can set your nickname here. And then you can choose whether or not you're connecting or hosting. So if we click on host right here, let's go ahead and set up a Netplay game of 007 Nightfire. And once the session is hosted, you can connect with other Xbox systems or other users of Dolphin that have this exact same Dolphin version. It does have to be the same version of Dolphin, unfortunately. So this is most useful for an Xbox to Xbox session right now. But you would just insert in the lobby code. So for example, if you're doing the traversal server, you could set the host code by entering in that lobby code as you saw in our created session. So I don't have two Xboxes set up with Dolphin right now, so I can't exactly demo this, but that is the basic logistics of getting Netplay up and running on the Xbox Series X and S. And with that, we're going to call it for our Xbox Series X and S Dolphin setup video. Again, this is a long one because there's just so much to cover when it comes to Dolphin. But again, Dolphin on Xbox Series X and S is actually a pretty great way to experience a vast majority of the system without any issues, and for the last little bit, a way to experience it with some compromises. But thank you all so much for watching. I really do hope this video helps you get your GameCube emulation, Wii emulation needs up and running on the Xbox Series X and S. But here at the end, the usual favors to ask. If you haven't already, please be sure to hit that thumbs up, thumbs down button, depending on how much you like this tutorial, as well as that sub button and notification bell so you can see when new videos go live on the channel. Loads of content always coming your way, and we'd love to have each and every one of you along for the ride and see all the cool stuff that goes down here. Now, if you're interested in helping support the channel further, also be sure to check out that join button here on YouTube or the Patreon link in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, as any little bit helps keep us going. Big thank you to all of our current backers. You're amazing. Couldn't do it without you. Thank you for believing in what we do. But until next time, wonderful internet peeps, you all stay awesome, keep on gaming, and we'll see you back next video.